So Sarwar Garvey just posted a video here recently where he's basically breaking down the situation with Justpearlythings and exposing a whole lot of stuff. And in my opinion, this might be the nail in her coffin in regards to the black community in Justpearlythings. But let's check it out.
I'm making this video today that I didn't initially want to make, but there comes a time when we're all at a crossroad and have to make a decision. And sometimes that decision can affect you morally, it can affect you spiritually, and it can affect you financially. But it's a decision that we can't shy away from. Now recently, Justpearlythings has been caught up in some controversy. Why? She has interviewed avid racist and known racist Nick Fuentes. He is also an anti-Semite. What did Pearl do when she interviewed him? What she done is that she laughed with him and seems to agree with a lot of his points.
Talk about instances of like when they initially freed the slaves, there were some slaves that felt so indebted to their owners that they would travel across states to pay them back, and they actually had a really good relationship with them.
Now, if she had said some of these things about the Jewish community, she would have been cancelled in a hot minute.
Yeah. If she would have said that about the Jewish community, it would have been guns blazing. It would have been over, right? What I found interesting is that whenever Nick Fuentes would bring up anything related to them, she would always insert black people and start speaking in a way that would come off as racist, which it really confused me. I'm like, why would you bring us in it? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was just a tactic to divert from that particular topic, from, you know, talking about those people, or if it's just how she felt, which I believe it was really her and how she felt about black people versus just Nick Fuentes. But yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Ask Kyrie Irving. Ask Kanye West.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't about the Jewish community. This is about us. Okay? And so after that interview, Pearl decided to make an apology video, which was, in my personal point of view, disingenuous and a PR stunt. And all in all, it came from a place of deception.
Guys, people say that stuff about me. They say I'm sexist. They say I'm a misogynist. And, you know, I really just like to give people the benefit of the doubt when I interview them. I don't go into interviews trying to interrogate someone. I just more try to listen and see where they're coming from. In hindsight, that wasn't smart. And in hindsight, I should have had someone, you know, maybe Sarah Garvey, maybe another content creator that could have pushed back more and really was more educated on the topics that he was talking about than I was, because I certainly was not an expert in any of the stuff that he was talking about.
Now, I've been on social media for a while, and I have done interviews with the likes of Tommy Robinson, Sargon of Akkad, politicians like Lee Jasper, and also Lin May and people from the music industry like So Solid, Mega Man to be exact. Now, Pearl was reacting to my content prior to coming to the UK. And so when she came to the UK, I was very interested in the content that she would actually put out. And it just so happened that she was putting out content that I was interested in, similar to what the late great Kevin Samuels actually put out. And I understand it because I myself had been embroiled in court cases and things of that nature when it comes to the mother of my son, and understand that the gynocentric order in which we live in is something that needs to be spoken about. So when she came to London, she said that she wanted to make a podcast, and I said, no problem, okay, let's talk about it. And I decided to feature on her show. Now, when I featured on her show, because of my following in the UK, people would tune in. So essentially, I helped Pearl grow her channel. Okay, I was on there week to week, and I was working with her based on a fee. So the tragic death of Kevin Samuels happened, and there was a vacuum within the manosphere space. Who was it going to be filled by? it was actually filled by Justpearlythings along with other content creators.
Yeah, Justpearlythings, Andrew Tate, pretty much exploded like a week or two after Kevin Samuels passed away. So I mean, it was really heavily those two. Other people kind of grew as well, but heavily Andrew Tate and Justpearlythings, really. Maybe Sneeko, but I think Sneeko was already kind of out here.
Now, I believe that the reason why this space was filled is because Kevin Samuels had a large following of black men. And these black men were essentially fed up with the way feminism had taken over their community, specifically their women. So when he died, there was a vacuum and a lot of black men looking for content like this. And it was filled by Pearl. And I believe that Pearl rose to fame because she herself was the opposite of what those men had been seeing. She was a white woman. She wasn't the types of women that they had been seeing, and essentially she was regurgitating Kevin Samuels' content.
So yes, she was definitely regurgitating Kevin Samuels' talking points. I will say this though, many people are doing the same thing. I don't say that to be negative. Those other people have more to say than just his talking points. But Kevin Samuels has left such a legacy. He has impacted people so heavily that you can't help but to, take on some of the things that he had to say. So it's perhaps more extreme with Justpearlythings, but Kevin Samuels was that dude basically. So anyway,
Samuels' content.
Now the heavy stuff.
So I began working with Pearl, and from the beginning I started to think that maybe this girl has a colonial mindset. Now we all know that we don't want to be paranoid, so I kept working with her. However, the more I worked with her is the more that I saw. She had a colonial type viewpoint when it came to black people, and I had to school her a few times on what it was like to be black and the black experience, and also what slavery and colonization was actually like.
Do you think that historical catastrophes must be compensated for?
No.
No.
That's stupid.
So then, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing.
Yeah.
So then, how come there were groups of people that got compensation then?
How come?
For instance, like Jewish people, Chinese people, Japanese people with the bombs. Like there were groups of people who got compensated.
I don't know.
So it wasn't fair.
What? Well, I'm talking about like when I think about group, I think about reparations. So I mean, maybe if the people were still alive today, like I don't know, maybe. But like when you said historical, I thought you meant like at the past, not the present.
Yeah, so like in the past, so like people talk about slavery. So in the past, you know, the Holocaust happened. In the past, you know, the Japanese, but people got compensated for it.
Yeah.
There's a book, right, called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And when you read that book, you realize that the whole Industrial Revolution and stuff like that was started because of the colonization. And you just think, well, if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't be as successful.
So what do you mean by the colonization?
So the colonization of Africa, so both the people and the resources, right? There's a direct correlation between the colonization of Africa and the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And so with all the metals and the rubber and all this kind of stuff coming from Africa, it fueled the Industrial Revolution of the West.
Wait, so you're saying like in Africa, when you say colonized, you're saying like did England come in and colonize?
Yeah, like so European, France, Spain, Portugal, England.
And they like enslaved Africans, and that's what you're saying. Okay.
So they enslaved and at least colonized the continent.
Okay.
So when you colonize a continent and then you take ownership of the resources, you're able to gather those resources together and use them to your own benefit.
Right.
And so you gather those resources, use them to your own benefit and build up your economy,
right,
all the while messing up the economy of that actual country.
Right.
So that video was filmed in 2022.
So in that particular video, he really breaks down the history of colonization within Africa and stuff like that, and how the West basically took over, enslaved, a whole lot of other stuff. Black people took their resources, more than likely gave them nothing or pennies at best. Meanwhile, the West's economy and everything else was just basically growing. Now, he's going to get to it later, how it really correlates with what's going on.
And in that video, what you saw was me attempting to tell Pearl and show Pearl what colonization was like. How people went to another group of people and took their resources and took what was theirs and built their empire off of it. So when Pearl now plays like she doesn't know what colonization is, and she doesn't know what slavery is, and she says these insensitive statements, in that video I actually attempted to give her a book. It was called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I've read it myself. She semi-dismissed that book. She kind of dismissed that book, and then she went on with herself to go and interview a man like Nick Fuentes. Pearl has Africans that work for her. Now, Nigeria has many issues. Now, the disparity in Nigeria has rich and poor people living just on the breadline. And Pearl has these types of people working for her. They edit her videos. They make her thumbnails.
So, look what I have here. This is evidence to show how hard my Americans work.
No, hold on. You forgot, yeah? This is how hard my white Americans work.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
They're very hard workers.
Yes.
I like how they work. My white Americans really work hard. You see that?
They inspire us to work hard.
No. Do you know what? They don't even inspire. They're working hard for themselves, bro.
Okay.
You know, they're putting in a lot of work, yeah? They put in a lot of work. My white
Yes.
white
You
Americans
guys should
work hard.
Work hard.
Yeah, you could.
So Pearl has taken people on from Africa, which on the surface looks like a good thing. And I guess it is. Africans are being fed, they're taking money from her, they are feeding their family. Amazing. However, with a colonial mindset, this can be quite dangerous. And what happened during that interview with Nick Fuentes was that she used an age-old tactic that colonizers use, which was the divide and rule tactic. She pitted African Americans versus Africans when she spoke about how hard Africans work compared to how hard African Americans work. And she also used the term my Africans. Much of what Pearl says is the
this is something that I've seen, and as far as like the what's it called, like the house nigga or whatever, and colorism and stuff like that, to where one group is better than the other one, and as long as you have these two groups fighting and hating each other, then you can manipulate them in other ways. This is something it's not even just isolated to racism, but you see it in other areas, right? If you just keep people divided and keep them fighting each other, then they can't work together. They can't see the real problems. They lose focus on the things that actually matter, because they're so distracted with focusing too much of their energy in the opposite direction, basically. So
determined by her management, which she has said to me on many occasions that she shares with Candace Owen. And she also used the term my Africans. Much of what Pearl says is determined by her management, which she has said to me on many occasions that she shares with Candace Owens. So when you have a colonial mindset and
Candace
you
Owens
have a management who tell you what to say, what generally happens in my personal point of view, and what I actually saw, was that she began to start paying people pittance she began to start offering contracts to people that owned them, just like a colonial master would. Case in point. Myself and Pearl sat down to have a conversation.
So I just want to chime in. The fact that Candace Owens has the same management team as Justpearlythings, it really it makes so much sense. There's a video that I've been outlining, and I don't know. I've been thinking about it, whether or not I'm gonna do it, how I'm gonna do it, and that part right there, it really just brings everything together. Like, that is something that I didn't know, but I kind of knew at the same time. But that by itself should tell you everything
About me signing to her contractually. And I want to make this very clear. I have never signed to the Justpearlythings network. I have always been an independent. Pearl has known that, and I have known that. And so anytime I worked with Pearl, we had agreed a fee, and I worked for that fee. I have never been signed to the Justpearlythings contracts. However, she has signed a few Africans, namely King Riches and Auntie Jenny. Now, I have no problem with a King Riches or an Auntie Jenny. However, if we look at the contracts that they signed, you would understand the reason why I use the term colonization and colonial. Now, myself and Pearl sat down to have a conversation, and she expressed to me that she wanted to do a new segment for her show. In that segment, she said that she would like me to present a topical news show on a day-to-day basis. So I said, okay, no problem. Talk to me. What are we talking about? And she said she would want me within her studio 4 days per week. I said, okay, from what time? She said from 10 in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening. And I said, okay, well, that is 7 hours. I said, so working 4 to 5 days a week for 7 hours is essentially a day job. I said to her, okay, so what is my guaranteed fee at the end of the month? What is the salary? And she looks at me and she says, we do not do guarantees and we do not do salaries. So I said, so if you don't do guarantees and you don't do salaries, what is it that you actually do? And she said she does percentages. So I said, okay, cool. Well, what's the percentage? She said, Sarah, you're the high end, so you will get 70-30. So I said, fine, okay, let me listen. 70% goes to me and 30% goes to you. Now she looked at me and she said, no, 70% goes to me, Pearl, and 30% goes to me, Sarah Garvey. And that's when I started scratching my head. So are you telling me that's a high-end contract for you? And she said, yes. And I said, so are you saying that Justpearlythings Network has other people on low-end contracts? She said, yes. I said, King Riches and Auntie Jenny? She said, yes. I said, what's the low end? She said it's 10 to 15%. So essentially, she could be owning 80% of the content, which is basically the monetized views on somebody's channel, and they only take home 15% of the money? She said, yes. I said, Pearl, how long are these contracts for? She said 3 years. So I said, let me get this straight. You want to own me for 3 years to take 70% of my ad revenue, keep me in your studio from 10 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening for 4 to 5 days a week, and you are not guaranteeing me any money. I said respectfully, for what reason would I work for your company? She said, because we have a great studio and we have great lighting and we have great editors that will edit your stuff down.
So I can understand Pearl actually needing to take a decent amount of the income from these people's shows, because she has to pay for the editing, all the lighting, the studio, and I guess she can get some type of a cut from all of that, right? She has to pay for all the crew and so on and so forth. So she has to get something in order to pay for the crew, get her cut, and then perhaps some kind of like advancements or future upgrades or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that does make some type of sense. But 90% 90% of their income, no 90%, because he said that the low end was 10 to 15%. That's 90%. It's 85 to 90% of whatever they make is going to Pearl. That's too much. I mean, it sounds like slave labor. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's coming, like King Rich is probably coming up with his show ideas, and he has to give most of it away to Pearly, and he's locked in for 3 years. And I'm pretty sure that probably recently kicked off, so he's probably got like another 2.5 years to go.
Now, I may be a lot of things, but I'm not an idiot. I may be cool, I may be calm, I may be collected, but I'm not a fool. And essentially, the colonial mindset of Pearl has people working on her quote-unquote plantation for absolute pittance, when a year ago I suggested to her to look into exactly what colonization was, and she acted dumb.
Guys, people say that stuff about me. They say I'm sexist, they say I'm a misogynist, and I really just like to give people the benefit of the doubt when I interview them. I don't go into interviews trying to interrogate someone. I just more try to listen and see where they're coming from. In hindsight, that wasn't smart. And in hindsight, I should have had someone, maybe Sarah Garvey, maybe another content creator that could have pushed back more and really was more educated on the topics that he was talking about than I was. Because I certainly was not an expert in any of the stuff that he was talking about.
Now, that kind of bothers me a little bit because, as I said earlier, she brought up black people. She brought up many of the points that people are highly upset about. So she was an expert, according to her beliefs, in that area because she's the one that put it out there. So she can't run from it in that way. Man. I mean, I think she's trying to be neutral, or she's trying to come off neutral in that particular video, but she's not, right? I mean, anyway.
I grew up in a time where there were brilliant R&B girl groups like TLC, and also brilliant R&B artists like Toni Braxton. They both sold millions and millions and millions of records, but they ended up broke. Why? Contracts. They were signed to contracts that did not favor them. And essentially, what Pearl is trying to do is come back in with the same contracts and do the exact same thing to the manosphere, and do the exact same thing to the red pill community. Why? Because Kevin Samuels left a gap. And Kevin Samuels' fan base was predominantly black men. And Pearl has come in there and attempted to be top of the food chain. I will not be a part of this game, and I will not be a part of this colony. I have always been an independent. If people in the UK who can actually say and watch all of my content can say that I've been around before Pearl even arrived in the UK, what would I look like signing my life away, essentially 70% of all I own, to this woman who just arrived in the UK the other day? She said to me that she's actually looking to sign more talent this year. Good for her. Good for the talent. But I hope they watch this video, and I hope they realize exactly what they will be signing. And I actually hope that this video makes her think about the ways, because essentially I had been with her from the beginning, and I had helped grow her channel. And if she could suggest this to me, somebody who helped her grow her channel, then you are nothing to her.
So one of the things that definitely needs to go away is artists or prominent voices within the black community getting screwed over by somebody with some level of power, some appearance of what we want. You know what I'm saying? Like they pull us in like, hey, you know, we got this. I know you want this. All you gotta do is sign this dotted line. Give me 90% of everything you got. You know what I'm saying? And I will put you on. You know, and there have been so many rappers and singers and stuff like that at least for the last 30 years or something like that have been screwed over by record labels and so on and so forth. So that's something that really needs to stop, right? Hopefully Cyrock Garvey's video will kind of shut that down. Maybe King Riches will somehow find a way to get out of that contract, and if he decides to remain, maybe he can renegotiate it, because 10 to 15, it's nothing. It's pennies, right? It's not enough to really do much with. He might grow. I mean, I guess you could say it's sort of a long game type of thing, but to me it seemed like he was already doing well anyway, so I don't know. But yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think. I'm gonna cut this video up a little bit because I don't want it to be super long. So yeah, what do you think about this? How do you feel? Are you still on Pearly's side? Are you pretty much against her forever? To me, this is a nail in the coffin of any hope of a majority of black people siding with her. I feel like she's kind of lost that at this point, at least for now. Maybe in the future people will come around, but she would have to change, right? She would have to change her own beliefs, and that's tough. I don't see that happening. You know, she's got some black people that she rocks with that kind of feed into the side of her that believes the negative stuff about black people. So it's kind of hard to see her changing. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you have any opinions, feel free to express yourself by the many means available on this page, and have a good one.